Hi, you guys. First of all, I want to thank you so much for joining in with Inner Athletes, and welcome to my home, where you will see a cat often, and there's actually a dog as well named Herschel that will be roaming around at times, but quite honestly, these workouts actually scare the shit out of him, so he usually skedaddles pretty quickly. I just finished the Saturday morning workout, and it got me to think that maybe it would be a really good idea for anybody who is new to Inner Athletes or to working out, or it's been a while, that perhaps it would be very useful to have a little tutorial of certain moves, mostly by what they're called, because I'll be like, okay guys, we're doing pullovers, and you'll be like, what the fuck is a pullover? So you can refer to this video to find out, oh, that's what a pullover is, and the proper form, etc. Now for sure, during the exercising, during the workout session itself, I'm constantly prompting, reminding, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's nice to have an understanding rather than just a who when we're about to rock out a move. So here we are. I'm going to start with squats. Now, most of us know what a squat is, but not everybody knows how to do it properly. So I'm just going to explain that and what the sort of functionality of this move is. During Inner Athletes, there's usually 3 different types of squats that we do. We do a regular squat, a chair squat, and a sumo squat. And then we do variations within those 3 realms kind of thing. So a chair squat is when you are in it's also known as a narrow squat. So you find your hip bones, those bumpy things that are sticking out, and you line up the feet underneath them. So it's a narrow chair squat, okay? A regular squat is a little wider. Generally speaking, it's shoulder width apart. Okay, so you go a little bit wider with the feet to match up with the shoulder distance. Sometimes some people need to have their toes out on a bit of an angle. That's perfectly okay. But that leads me to the 3rd squat, which is the sumo squat or the plie squat, where you are wider. Again, generally speaking, wider than your regular squat. Your toes are pointing out at a 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock kind of angle of a clock, right? So 12 o'clock being here, 10 and 2. And the weight distribution is slightly different than in a regular squat. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the chair squat. So I'm going to bring myself into hip width apart with my feet. And I will always cue you to have a look down and make sure your heels are parallel, meaning they are in the same spot, right? So you're not having one foot behind the other, even just a tiny bit. It's very important to make sure that your heels are parallel. All right, with a squat, not a sumo squat, but a chair squat or a regular squat, what you want to consider is the hinge being the hip, okay? The problem with squats, what tends to happen is we think of it as kind of leaning the body forward, and then all of the weight goes into the knees. And all we're doing is basically lifting our chest up and down, okay? A squat, you need to actually hinge at the hip, not the waist. Hinge at the hip, so right where your leg meets your torso. Just think of it that way. You're kind of folding yourself in half, but as you do so, you're pushing your bum back, your tailbone back on a bit of a 45 degree. Now, the only problem with that is that a lot of times people push back and arch their back. They arch the bum back, kind of rather than just dropping it down, okay? When you drop your bum or tailbone down at that 45, you're going to find that if your core isn't engaged, you're actually going to fall back, which is kind of awesome because it means you've got the right angle. Now you have to add in some stability, and that is the core. So I always tell you guys that squats, although you feel it mostly in the lower part of your body, it's a major core exercise as well because you're stabilizing yourself so you don't actually fall onto your bum, right? Okay, so we're going to hinge right where the leg meets the torso. We're going to push the bum back and down at a 45 without arching it back, right? I'm not arching back. I'm just dropping it down. The balls of my feet are still on the floor, but I can wiggle my toes. I'm definitely in my heels the most. My chest is proud, my chin is up, dropping down to where I can before I start to feel myself kind of either leaning forward or tucking my bum in. And then I'm driving through the heels, quads on fire, come back up to my stand. Once I'm up in that stand, I don't lock my knees. I don't come up and then hold tight. As I come up, I squeeze the pelvic floor. You'll get this feeling, I promise you. And that is a proper squat. Okay, as you come up, I want you to imagine the crown of your head being driven to the ceiling. I want you to think that you're about to sit down in a seat behind you, a chair behind you, just a few feet away from you, and then somebody pulls that chair away, so you got to stand back up again, right? Okay, so core tight, shoulders relaxed, chest proud, so you're not just dropping the body forward. All right, so that goes for chair squat and the regular squat. All right, so we're coming up, not locking the knees. Come down on the heels, squeeze up. Don't lock the knees. Awesome. All right, chair squat, a little narrower, doing the same thing. The second thing you got to check out when you're doing a regular squat or a chair squat is that your knees don't pronate in. So we're actually engaging inner and outer thigh to try and stabilize the knee so that we don't come in, right? So it's a great idea to do this in front of a mirror. I think this Zoom thing is kind of cool because you'll be able to see your form. So just watch for those types of things, all right? And the more you do them, of course, the better you'll get at them. So, and always go narrow first. You don't have to go all the way down. Don't worry about that, okay? Land the proper form and then start to execute a little bit of a deeper squat. All right, sumo squat is different because we're not actually dropping the hips back, we're dropping them down. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you're kind of up against a wall and it's your shoulders and kind of your lower back or your butt cheeks that are against that wall and the head, and we're just sliding down that wall. Now in a regular squat position, there's no way we could do that. Okay, but in a sumo, because we're opening wider and our feet are on a bit of an angle, we're able to drop the pelvic floor straight down. And as we do so, we're pushing the knees out a little bit. I want you to actually feel yourself pushing those knees out. You're in your heels. You are up against that wall. That core is crazy tight to keep that spine in line so you're not arching your bum back or pelvic tilting forward. Okay, so we're straight down. We're not arching back and we're not tilting forward, right? We're dropping the pelvic floor down and then we're driving through the heels and squeezing back up. Now you're going to feel these here instead of here or quad. Okay, you're going to feel the side of the bum. You're going to feel it for sure in the inner thigh, and your pelvic floor is going to squeeze, core tight. All right, so sumo or plie squat, chest proud as always, sliding down a wall, pushing through the heels, driving yourself back up, kind of lifting up and coming to that full stand. All right, shoulders relaxed. From that particular position, the sumo squat, I'm going to show you something that's called an upright lift, because we do those a lot because they're fucking awesome. All right, so you're going to be in a sumo squat position, shallow, okay? Or if you can go a little deeper, you go for it, but make sure it doesn't lean forward, right? Make sure the body doesn't lean forward. You're going to have the weight so that it's resting in the palms of your hand, okay? So you're holding on, okay? Shoulders are chill. We're teaching the body to take the work out of the shoulders and place it appropriately in the core and the upper back muscles, not the shoulder joint itself. You come down in that sumo. As you rise up, you push the weight above the head, and then as you come down, you slowly drop the weight back down again to where it started. So up, upright lift, down. All right, the key is to try and keep the elbows as parallel as possible. All right, and you're not actually going right overhead. You're going just slightly, I'll show you a side angle. You're just going slightly ahead of the body. All right, so we're going to come up on a bit of an angle and back down again. Squeeze up. Try not to look up. Look straight ahead so the neck isn't tilted. All right, that's an upright lift. Another one that we do in either a regular squat position or a halo, or a sumo is called a halo. And a halo is working the upper body and also working the core. All right, and this time you're holding it by its stem, not the bells. So you're sitting down in your sumo squat. It's best if sumos kill you or if your hip is like, I'm not doing this for a long period of time in a static position, bring the toes forward and just sit down into a regular squat. All right, so I'm up against that wall. Shoulders are relaxed. My chest is proud. My chin is up and kind of in. And I'm going to take the one bell and I'm going to bring it up, round the back of my head, and then I'm going to rotate it back down again. All right, and then we're going to go the other direction. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing the bell up and over, and I'm kind of lifting the opposite elbow to the side I'm bringing, and then reversing that, and then coming back. All right, so a side view of that. So again, up against that wall, I'm not arching out, I'm not tucking in. I'm up against that wall, I'm gonna bring that weight around my head like a halo, and drop it back down, and I'll cue you to check in with your shoulders when you're doing this. So up, around, back into position, check your shoulders. Up, around, check the shoulders. All right, so that's a halo. I've got my list here, so I'm just going through my list as fast as I can because I know this is kind of boring, but it's super important. Right, so the other one that we do in a squat position, again, mostly sumo or a sumo squat, and this is with or without low weights. So 3s or 5s or no weights at all. If you have shoulder issues, no weights at all. For this one, you're sitting down in your sumo. You're going to rotate so your palms are facing out. You're going to keep the arm in a position straight. Okay, we don't bend the elbow during this thing at all. We're working upper back and core again and shoulder. Okay, and we're going to bring the weights or the fists up. Don't change the elbows. Your elbows are going to want to come in. Don't let them. You're going to go right overhead with the palms facing out. And then you're slowly bringing it back down again. All right, so we're definitely working all of the shoulder muscles and through the upper back, and the core is holding you stable as you create that move. I'll show you the side view of that. So palms facing out. Again, I'm not arching out. I'm neutral spine. Coming up, squeezing the core right here, exhaling at the top, and then slowly dropping that back down again. All right, so that's called Around the World. And again, this will be cued, but you'll have like, oh yeah, right, I remember that in your head, right? All right, so next we're gonna go on the floor. So that's kind of the upper body. There's a whole shit ton more stuff that we do, but it's not necessary. You'll know when we do it, and I'll cue you well enough during like bicep curls and tricep kickbacks and that kind of stuff, shoulder press, etc. So these are just the ones that sound a bit odd, like you're like, what's an upright lift? Now you know. All right, and a squat is ridiculously important to nail. Okay, so I want you to really practice that. All right, so we're going to get on the floor, and we're going to do these things called pullovers and tight rows. Okay, before we get on the floor, I just want to explain a tight row in a standing position, because getting the visual of what you're actually doing, I think is important. All right, so for the tight row, you're going to be lying down. Okay, so just imagine I'm on the floor. But I want you to get the visual here, because the tendency is to tight row from here. All right, and that's a lot of shoulder work. What we're doing is actually, you just imagine yourself standing, even though you're lying down, and I want you to get that 90-degree angle with the elbow, and you're just pushing and pulling the weight from the waist. Okay, so I'm lying down, but I'm essentially doing this. Okay, when you're lying down, the body's going to tend to do this. Okay, and we're not trying to lift it towards the shoulder. We're trying to lift it right from the waist and back again. All right, so I just want to have that mental view for you. So we're going to use heavy weights for the pullover and tight row, and heavy weight is completely up to you what you're starting with. Okay, if you're just starting out on this weight training thing, then you're going to go low weights, like 3s or 5s to start, and then you're going to just progress up. I'm going to use 10s just for the instruction here. So you're going to get down on the old floor. I hope you can see me. And we're going to lift up the hips, drop them down, the shoulder and the head. Now with that pullover, what we're doing is we're bringing the weights up over the belly button, and we're dropping the shoulders down, and the wrists are not rotated out. The wrists are tucked in, so no weight is resting in that joint. And then with the shoulders relaxed, we're going to drop the weight overhead. Now your body's going to want to bend the elbow. You're not going to let it. You're going to drop it to where you can, and then as you exhale and pull that weight over, I want you to squeeze at the belly button. So you're pushing your core down into the floor. Okay, you're going to stop the arching of the back from happening, which is definitely going to happen right about here. And then exhale, push down, and bring the weights over. Tight row, which you saw me do standing, you're going to open them up. Okay, so elbows are tight to the body. The weights are apart now, and I'm going to pull and push from my waist. So I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be out here. I'm going to bring the elbows in tight, tight row. That's why it's called a tight row. We're tight to the body. The elbows are tight to the body. And you're pulling and pushing from the waist. Okay? Got that? So that is working bicep, tricep, upper back, pecs, all that fun stuff. A pullover is working all the way down the train of muscles in the back. It's fucking awesome. Okay, while I'm on the floor, I'm going to show you what's called a headbanger, because that's kind of a weird name too, and you might not be familiar with it. And generally what we do is a headbanger with bridge. So I'll show you that as well. All right, so same thing. We're on the floor, okay? And we'll lift up the hips and shoulders and head and all that stuff. You're going to grab one weight, one heavy weight, and you're going to place it in your palms like we did for the upright lift. Okay, for a headbanger, we're working the tricep. We're going to work the back of the arm. And the deal is this. It's called a headbanger because as you bend the elbow, you bring the weight towards you. So you're going to bang your head, but don't. And then you're going to lift that weight up. So as the weight comes down, what you're doing is extending the tricep. And as the weight comes up, you're contracting the tricep. Now the body's going to want to kind of make this as efficient as possible, and it's going to want to move the upper arm. It's going to want to use the shoulder joint to help with the movement, and you're like, no, body. Keep the upper arm still, keep the shoulder joint locked in. The other thing the body's going to want to do is rotate the wrist and let the wrist hold some of that weight. You're going to lock that shit down. You're going to bend at the elbow, and you're going to push the weight forward and up, okay? So really try your best to stop the want to move the upper arm, okay? Because that's using the shoulder joint. We're trying to squeeze tight and use that tricep. All right. Now we usually do bridge with this. So you're digging into your heels. You're going to lift and squeeze the glutes as the weight comes up. So do the hips. Now with bridge, the tendency is to just kind of curl the pelvic forward. So you kind of pelvic tilting forward. I want you to consider from basically the rib cage to your bum a straight steel line, that like a flat piece of wood. So as you lift here, so this comes up. Right? So you're lifting your entire torso and kind of pushing through the space between your shoulder blades and pushing into your heels, so that you're using your glutes to lift the entire torso, not just rotate the pelvis. I hope that makes sense. While we're on the floor, I'm going to show you Superman and plank, and then I'm going to let you go. All right. So Superman is awesome for all the muscles down the spine, the erector spinae, and it works the glutes like crazy as well. All right. So it's a full body workout. It's crazy sweaty for me, anyways. In particular, this one really gets me every time. Now, if you have lower back issues, if you're suffering from any pain in the lower back, you're going to find Superman might aggravate it a bit. Sorry, I just burped. So what you're going to do is modify it by alternating one arm and one leg on the rise. I'll show you what I mean. Otherwise, we're going to do what we normally do in class, which is a Superman with a pullback. So with Superman, the neck stays in line with the spine. So you're not looking down and you're not looking up. Your arms are straight out in front of you, palms face down. A regular Superman is lifting all four appendages. So both arms, both legs, and then dropping down. If you have lower back issues, it's best to alternate opposite arm, opposite leg, and just go to as high as you can, all right? The extra work that we do in Superman is we come up, we pull back, we reach, we drop, all right? So give those a try and see what happens with that lower back. We always go into child pose afterwards to give it a good stretch. And finally, plank. My thing with plank is the getting in and out of plank. And I see many videos where I'm like, oh my God, it just makes me, my back go, oh God. Because you don't just lift up into plank and you don't just drop down on the floor, okay? Setting up for plank is really it's time that you need to take. All right, so I always say that it's like you're setting up half the body and then the full body. So with plank, whether it's elbow or full arm, hands underneath the shoulders for a full arm plank, elbows underneath the shoulders for an elbow plank, obviously. Excuse me. One side of the body is set up, so you've got a long leg, you're pushing back, you're lengthened and you're in plank in one side. Then I want you to imagine that somebody's just like punching you in the stomach. So I want you to squeeze the core tight and then use that squeeze to lift the other leg into plank position. Once you're in this position, you then kind of lean slightly forward as if you're looking over the ledge. Round your shoulder blades slightly by tucking in the chest. Push back in the heels and don't lock your knees. Tuck your tailbone in so you're counter-resisting by pushing down the floor with your palms and with the balls of the feet and the toes. And hold. To come out of this, if you're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore, rather than just dropping right down, I'm going to drop one knee, drop the other, go in a child pose, and then set yourself up again properly. All right? Don't just fucking drop down and then come right back up again. It's terrible for your lower back. And then we do different types of things when we're in plank, of course. Fun. So much to look forward to, I know. Anyway, I hope I didn't talk too fast. I hope I didn't go through that too fast. I just didn't really want to take up too much of your time and bore you with this kind of tutorial stuff, but it's really fucking important, right? That we get this shit done. So here's my other offer to you is if you have an issue of any sort, if you're recovering from an injury, if you know of a part of you that needs a little extra love, then I want you to shoot me an email, innerathletes@gmail.com. And we will either discuss via email or perhaps we might even Zoom meeting just briefly. I promise I won't take much of your time. But I would love to be there for you. So if you need a little bit of extra guidance or if any of this stuff is like, what? If you've never worked with weights before, anything like that, let me know. All right? And don't feel like you're bugging me. You're not. I'm here for you. All right? I look forward to seeing you in your square, in Zoom. I just can't believe this is what we're doing now, but we are. All right, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm actually thoroughly enjoying it, much more than I thought I would. I hope you will feel the same, and I'll see you soon. All right, make sure you email me if you need to. Promise. Okay, talk to you later.